This video will highlight some basic copyright information that you need to know as an instructor. The resources used to make this presentation can be found next to this video. The three copyright rules we will discuss are fair use, public domain, and the TEACH Act. First, we'll talk about fair use. Fair use says that reasonable amounts of copyrighted material may be used without permission for things pertaining to scholarship, teaching, criticism, commentary, research, and news reporting. This applies largely to educational uses because it allows educators to distribute portions of copyrighted works to their classes, post artwork to password-restricted class websites, make single-use photocopies for research purposes, and this is all without permission from the copyright holder. There are four main criteria to determine if something falls under fair use, and those are purpose and character of the use, nature of the copyrighted work, amount and sustainability of work to be used, and the effect on the potential market or value of the work. This chart shows you some examples of what does and does not fall under fair use. For example, if the purpose of using the copyrighted material is for teaching or news reporting, you'll see it favors fair use. If the purpose is strictly for commercial use or financial gain, it does not fall under fair use. Feel free to pause this video at any time to look through any of the charts in more detail. This provides some specific examples of what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. For example, you can create a link to a journal article that leads to the publisher's website, but you cannot post a copy of that article to a university server. Next, we'll touch on public domain. Works in the public domain are not copyrighted, therefore they belong to the public and do not require permission to use. A common misconception is that if something does not have a copyright notice, it is not copyrighted. And this is not true. You should always assume that something is copyrighted and then take the necessary steps. Again, feel free to pause the video to look through these charts in more detail. This chart shows you the protections of works in the public domain depending on what year they were published. Lastly, we'll talk about the TEACH Act, and that stands for Technology, Education, and Copyright Harmonization Act. It addresses distance learning and course management systems. It expands the rules of fair use and public domain to better fit the use of educators. The TEACH Act made 5 basic changes to existing copyright laws to better fit educators. The first one is that it allows educators to use reasonable amount of works for distance learning other than that allowed by fair use, which is non-dramatic, literary, and musical works. Second, it recognizes that the classroom is not just physical anymore and that a student is allowed to access copyrighted material from a computer. It allows educators to store copyrighted material on a server for asynchronous displays. It allows educators to digitize works to use in distance learning when digital copies do not already exist. And last, it recognizes that distance learners are not subject to punishment for accessing copyrighted materials through enrolled courses. For more information about copyright, you can visit www.copyright.gov.